everybody? Welcome back to episode 129 of the Podcana podcast. This week we are continuing taking a look at the best decks within the Whispers in the Well Set 10 metagame. We have a very cool event coming up for all of us. Podcana have been invited to participate in the second iteration of the LCCC. I still think the name needs a bit of work personally, but yeah, this event's hosted by Pavel. They have like some of the top Lorcana players from the scene playing in this, and somehow I wound up in here, which is I'm happy to be included, happy to participate. But yeah, I want to pass this to you guys, starting with Zach, our previous reigning champion, I believe, right?
So this is actually the third one.
This is the third one, bro.
Yeah,
I'm
this is the third.
Already. I'm cooked.
So I won the first one, and Zan won the second one. But we're about to make it 2 times, so then I will be reigning. So
nice, man. Nice. Love to hear that. And Thiago, this is your first time participating, right?
Yeah, super excited. I mean, like, all of the people who are selected are, like, so good, and so it's going to be really fun. All of the matches are going to be super interesting, and, yeah, they do, like, this, like, North America versus European, like, theme, so I'm really excited to take down the Europeans. I think the North American roster is stacked, so, yeah, ready to dominate you guys.
We lost our best player, man. We lost our Moyen. Our Moyen was our only hope, and he's, Ravensburger decided to take him from us, but... yeah, I'm excited. Go on.
Lost Moyen, lost Artabax. Like, you guys are. I was looking through the player list, and like the one I'm by far the most scared of is Spessy. So like, he's gonna be playing like.
Because it could be anything.
Yeah, because it will literally. I've seen his list. I've seen his list. No one's gonna expect what Spessy's playing.
Yeah. So
I was predicting what everyone was playing, and in Spessy's spot, I just left it blank. Like I don't know.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it though, because round 1 I actually paired. I knew it was gonna happen, but I paired against Sky, so we're gonna have a Podcana face-off starting tomorrow. So if you guys are interested in watching, I'm sure somebody will be casting it. It's what time is it? I think we did it's gonna be like 9 p.m. Central Europe time, so I think that's like 3 p.m. EST roughly tomorrow we'll be playing. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm gonna get cooked. I'm gonna get absolutely battered.
No,
but
come on, you got it.
We'll make it a show. People want to see. I think the last time I played Sky was Frank was playing his DLC Milwaukee finals, and me and Sky were just playing the game on the side waiting. Yeah, I think it'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, huge shout out to Pavel as usual. Absolute pillar of the Lorcana community for putting on this show. And honestly, I really enjoyed it personally when. The LCCC was taking place when we didn't have big events, right? This was like set 7, set 8, kind of. I remember set 7 was like the insane blue steel deck came out, and everyone was just rocking that. And LCCC was still so enjoyable to watch because it just made for like great content at a time where like competing and competitive play wasn't really prevalent for Lorcana, right? Like we finished we came off the back of the NA Championship, and then people were like, Worlds? When's Worlds? Are we getting confirmation when Worlds is actually going to take place? All of this like weird stuff was happening. So yeah, I just think it's an awesome thing for Pavel to put on, and I hope people enjoy watching it. I'm going to make a prediction that one of these 2 guys beside me is gonna make it all the way. Like, I have a lot of faith in that. Very little faith in myself, but I know I can put on a show, and I can do my best. So. Yeah. I'm looking forward to it.
My game's also tomorrow. I will be playing against world champion DKP, who is one of my teammates. So that game will be fun for sure. It'll be at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So it'll be right before Kawa and Sky's game. You can set up a little double header. Okay. And then, yeah, I don't know. The DKP won the world championship when he was still in his 20s. Now he's in his 30s. I think he's cooked. We'll see though.
He's cooked, yeah. Before we move into taking a look at some of the top performing deck lists from this week, I have a little bit of personal news I'd like to share with everybody as well. So if anybody follows me on social media, they probably saw I'm starting a new job as a community and content manager for a brand new company. Within this space, it is within the realm of what we all know and love. More details to come this Friday. Keep an eye on my socials, and then I'll probably talk about it more next week. But this is a super cool opportunity for me. again, I want to speak about it so bad, but I can't. I have to wait because I want to, But I will ultimately be leaving Card Market. I want to give a huge shout out to Card Market and the time I've spent here in Germany for this new job. I get to move home, which is awesome. But yeah, Card Market has been such an amazing company to work for. I know they're looking for somebody to take over my role, and I'm really happy about the place I'm leaving. Like their social media, that was like the main thing I was doing. I was sharing deck lists, I was sharing combos, and I was just basically making content that people who already play, not only Lorcana, people who play Magic or Pokemon or anything, like content that they just want to see anyways, right? It wasn't so much about promoting the marketplace, it's just promoting quality content of the game that everybody loves. So I will miss the role, I will miss the people. It's a great company to work for, so shout out to them. But I'm very excited for my new adventure. So people can theorize down below what they think it might be, as people have already been doing. But yeah, let's move straight on over to looking at these deck lists. But before we do, again, shout out to the PPG Summit Orlando. We've been coming back to it every week, but they do awesome work. I'm very, very excited to watch this event. So they're going to have I believe it's a 5K on Friday, it's going to be a 10K on Saturday, and a 5K Infinity event on the Sunday. So shout out to PPG once again. If you guys want to support the podcast, be sure to check out the affiliate link down below in the video description. Okay, Thiago, Blurple by Ying. Before we get into it, do you know much about this player Ying? Because if you're unaware, he actually made it to the finals of the Lorca Quest CCQ, the event that I cast, and he put on a stellar performance. And I think this is just so cool to see somebody get to a finals of a CCQ, go to a CCQ the next weekend, and then still take it down. So would love, a little bit of analysis into this deck from you.
Yeah, I mean, it's super cool that he's able to do that, especially since these tournaments are like so focused on you getting exactly first place,
Yes.
because the Continentals qualification only goes to first place. So if you get second, it's like such a gut punch, and it's like you battled through this 900-person tournament and then didn't get your qualification. And like these, in the US at least, these tournaments are like 25Ks or whatever, so then you like walk away with your like $4,000 or something. But then in Europe they give you like two boxes and a McChicken or something, and then you're like okay, this is great.
Yeah.
So I mean, and I think the tournament he had played the previous week was set 9, and then this one was set 10. So then he had like to learn the entire new set after he had been like practicing for the previous tournament. So yeah, that's super cool. I didn't get to see any of the games, but like I'm sure he played super well. But if we take a look at the deck list, it's kind of similar to some of the other lists we've been looking at. It's like a bit of a more classic take where it's like a lot of the set 9 cards, except it's just changing their card draw package to this Hades guidebook kind of stuff. He is playing 2 Demonas. It's one of the cards that people have been finding really important to lock down the opponent's board and give yourself a bunch of challenges. We're seeing him play 4 Iagos, which I think is like really important in this meta. I think people are really not expecting Iago as much as they should. He is, however, playing a couple actions that target illusions. He's playing 2 copies of Magical Maneuvers, which is a card that we saw in a couple copies towards the end of last meta. We saw one in the DLC Bologna winning list, and then we saw the list that made it to the finals of Milwaukee adding a second copy. So it's kind of something that people started utilizing more in these Blurple decks towards the end of the previous meta, and we see it carried over here. In this meta, it can also be paired with something like the Cheshire Cat, which has the boost mechanic. So every time the Cheshire Cat activates, it puts a card under itself, and then if you bounce it with Magical Maneuvers, you get all those cards back. Same with bouncing it with Madam and Maleficent. With that being said, this Cheshire Cat is coming in the place of a copy of Bell Accomplished Mystic, which I'm not entirely sure how I feel about that. I think these Blurple decks have historically, in my mind at least, always been defined by Bell Accomplished Mystic, and when Blurple has been really oppressive, it's because it already has these high willpower characters like Iago and Madam and Maleficent and Elsa the Fifth Spirit who set up the Bell Accomplished Mystic, and she's like so swingy across these like early mid-game turns right after you ramp that it has such a devastating effect on the game. Will be interesting to see when this meta evolves what that split looks like. I think you can play more than 4 copies of this kind of effect, but it is interesting seeing the Cheshire Cat with these kind of bounce effects. But yeah, other than that, we also see this Scare, which is a card people have been playing around with. 6-1 drops is like something we saw more last format, but is not really the standard of what people are playing now. But um, overall, like it's just very similar to what we've seen before, and it's really interesting that he was able to fight through the entire top cup bracket because like Blurple has not been doing super well in a lot of the tournaments so far. It's been getting like one copy in each top eight. But it's been like the flavor of the week online over the last couple days. So I would not be surprised if we see a ton of it this weekend, especially because it's a deck that people played so much of last set and are very used to playing.
Makes sense, yeah, and I think the I agree. I think the Cheshire Cat confuses me a little bit because like you never really want to be playing this ever on turn three. You always want to be ramping, especially when you're playing the ninth copy of ramp, right? So I think taking like losing a bell and playing the Cheshire Cat is definitely something I'm a little bit confused about. But having spoken to Ying in person at the previous tournament, I'm sure he has a valid reason or a reason that he believes is good enough to warrant the inclusion of this card. I actually really like the idea of this sudden scare in the deck because sudden scare, like we think about a lot of the decks in the meta right now, they're very greedy Sapphire decks, right? So we've got Sapphire Steel and we've got Green Blue, and they're very focused on kind of playing one big card per turn. Sapphire Steel a lot more than Green Blue, but Green Blue is still a similar type of thing. So as the game gets later and later and later, like with Sudden Scare, like you really don't care that you're effectively double ramping them. Like it's actually just like an inkable, cheaper Dragonfire in a sense. Like it is worse because still giving them 2 extra ink can be notable if you're getting something like Green Blue, but I mean, I don't know if there of any super impactful full like board clear combos anymore compared to like you've got like the Malicious Mean and Scary and the Prince Phillips and the Green Blues, but like like there used to be that weird break point in Green Blue if you ever put them on like 14 ink potentially where they could like if they have nothing on board they can still hard cast like Head Held High Under the Sea and like completely wipe your board, right? So it's important to think about stuff like that, but maybe not so much right now when there's not any crazy combos that can be happening. But before we move on from Blurple, Thiago, just one other point I wanted to ask you about. Like very early on when we looked at Blurple, we did see a lot of the Tamatos, the 6 cost Tamatos with these guidebooks, and I'm curious as to why you believe that's like made its way out of the deck, right? Like maybe it was a bit too ambitious, maybe you want to make space for just like some better things. So I'd love to hear you speak about that briefly if possible.
Yeah, I think people have just found it to be too slow. Like it is extremely mana intensive that like you just don't have enough ink to keep playing and replaying and then casting the cards that you draw off of it. So I think that that's ultimately why. I don't know if 0 copies of Tamato is correct. Like I think there's probably some middle ground where like you're playing 1 Tamato and 3 guidebooks, you're playing 2 Tamatos or something. Like I think we've not exactly cracked the code on that yet. I think it's definitely possible we'll see some iteration of the deck playing Tamatoas. Yeah. And then final point on the Cheshire Cat is just that it's slightly different than Bell, that it's like a repeatable effect. So when your opponent's at 18 lore and they're top decking a card every single turn and presenting a threat that will put them to 20 lore, like you're gonna need if you have like Elsa, Bell, like you're stopping 3 turns worth of things, whereas if you just have like a Cheshire Cat, it alone counts multiple turns if you just have damage on your guys. So it does have some utility. There's also like lines where you go like turn 2 ramp, turn 3 sail, ink, play Cheshire Cat. So it's like nice to have a 3 cost, and then the next turn you can like play Elsa and sink into the unknown, and then already have Hades the following turn. So like there's a couple applications to like where it's nice to have a 3 cost character. I think it's completely reasonable.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, moving on to taking a look at the other winning deck list from the Barcelona CCQ. This was Amber Emerald Dogs, and this is built by Shorty, I believe, Iconic Shorty. Zach, I'd love to pass this over to you. I know the last time we really dove deep into dogs, you were saying you weren't like the biggest fan and stuff, but like I think it's really, in my opinion, I want to say it's found a place in this metagame as just one of the good aggro decks, again, able to punish a lot of these very greedy Sapphire decks, if that makes sense. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on
it. I think green yellow in general has a ton of potential in this set. This and the Circle of Life stuff. This list is like very, very standard, like mostly just set 9 in before. But the one card that it gained that's really, really good, I think, is the Mowgli. I think that's very impactful. I don't even know if you need 3 Ursulas when you have the Mowgli or not. I'm not sure. Haven't tested that out, but that's something I'd be interested in exploring. And the 4 Webbies makes a ton of sense. You probably don't need the Merryweather now because that card was like not amazing in the first place. Webby activating without the ink is amazing, so I would probably look to be replacing that. But the 1 drop count is quite low in here. Like typically you were seeing like 24 plus 1 drops, and this is like roughly 20, I think, or so. So makes sense just to get an extra 1 drop in there, I suppose. Prince Philip is cool as just closing out the game. They basically can't deal with it unless they have like a Demona. So I'm okay with that card. I don't really like 4 of the 5 drop lady, just because it breaks your hands so much. You already have the Chromicon's the Under the Sea and the lady, so I'd probably cut back to 3 on that. But otherwise, I think the list is very very streamlined, pretty much what we know from the past. So yeah, still a good deck.
Makes
It
sense.
overperformed. It's been overperforming since set 9. So
Yep.
Yeah, it was at the end of the last set. It was like 6 or 7% or something of Milwaukee, and it was like 3 of the top 8 decks. So like at the end of the format, it was like still the best deck. And then this tournament, I think it was 4 copies in the top 8 when it was probably like that we didn't get the full breakdown, but it was like probably not that much more than like 10% of the tournament, and to be like 50% of the top 8 like is completely crazy. A card you did talk about a little bit was the Prince Philip. I guess the biggest thing I would be wondering is like if we kind of want these like warded 2 questers to close out the game, is it so much better to play this Prince Philip that costs 1 less than like the big Webby shift
Webby,
and
yeah.
like lose the opportunity to just like high roll, sometimes just hit the Webby shift and then just like win games alone against it, against these like blue decks that are trying to like cast multiple ramp spells? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I would definitely try the Webby before I try the Prince Philip for sure. I actually tested Prince Philip a little bit going into Bologna, and it was okay. I wasn't like super impressed with it, but it definitely can win games. So I would try out the Webby for sure. Like you said, it can run away with the game against the blue decks.
Yeah, super interesting. And I think the one thing you mentioned about the amount of 1 drops, it's very, very fair. And the more I think about this, like I've said this in the past, I've never been the biggest fan of this 1 cost uninkable lady. But if you want to maximize how many 1 cost ladies you get to then basically guarantee that this 2 cost trap is always acting as a 1 drop. So then in a sense that if you ever have a 2 cost trap in your hand, as long as you've done lady on turn 1, that those 2 cost traps can actually be considered as just other 1 drops as well. I actually find that quite interesting, and that tramp can be so versatile when you need it to just be a body to play it early. It combos well with the bigger tramp when you need it when you need one of your characters to actually swing back into something big. Like I think this 2 cost tramp is also a very very solid card within these decks, but also a good point you make about the Mowgli. Like I think we're gonna have a look at some of these other green yellow decks. Like I think for the Circle of Life decks as well, I think people are, like most decks I've seen are probably at like 4 Ursula and 2 Mowgli, or it's the reverse, or I've seen that are on like no Ursula and just on 4 Mowgli, and I think that kind of makes sense to me because the Circle decks, in my opinion, they're kind of quite tight depending on what package you want to play, like how much more top end you want to play, how much more early game stuff you want to do. If you're doing Plutos and you're doing Rajas, or if you're just trying to play other types of characters in the early game. Like I don't know if you want so many options of the Ursula versus the Mowgli, and the Mowgli probably does Ursula's job. I don't know, 70% of the time. Like I don't know how often you're going to be presented with the choice of like, oh, I actually really wanted to choose that one. I guess they like no matter what, they're discarding a card, and they're probably likely to have some type of action. You're looking at these greedy Sapphire decks, like the Sapphire Steels have all of the songs, the Green Blues have the relevant ramp card. They've got Malicious Mean and Scary too. So I think Mowgli just fits in really well. And honestly, when you're playing a deck like this in particular, I don't care that it's 1 less willpower either. Like that's not going to change things ultimately for me. So yeah.
But I think one interesting thing about the Mowgli that we might see is like people like Sapphire decks constructing their decks and playing their opening turns differently because of Mowgli. Like maybe you don't play Develop Your Brain on turn 1, so that you don't have to discard your Spooky Sight later on. So like you can just hold, like now you're playing 4 Develop Your Brains partly because of Mowgli, and you're not going to play it early on, so that you have the option to just get rid of that. So Ursula can be better against certain things when you get to choose like the strength or whatever. Like I don't know. I just think that we could see adaptations on deck building and your early plays to get around the Mowgli. So it'll be interesting to see that.
For sure, I agree, definitely. All right, taking a look at the next deck list. This is from DKP, your teammate, as you mentioned, Thiago. He brought Blue Steel to the CCQ in Barcelona, and I read through some of his thoughts, and I think I saw his his matchups. I saw there's a lot of Purple Steel, which makes sense. Purple Steel is still a very very popular deck within the meta, but I think he was saying that he was happy that he put the aerials in the end. Like he actually felt like aerial performed quite well in this specific build. But I think it's cool to see. Like when I looked at this build, we kind of saw the Blue Steel like core shell last week from what Sky showed, and then basically what I can't remember which player it was, but there was another player that had Blue Steel that swapped the hook and Mulan counts. They didn't have. Oh, they had I think they had the Kidas instead of the one jumps and stuff. But this is quite interesting to me because it builds upon that core package, but it has the spookies for your aggro matchups, which I feel like in Blue Steel, you probably need it. Like some versions of Blue Steel that don't play it, they're just, I don't know, they probably anticipate that either I'm playing against enough Purple Steel and greedy Sapphire decks that I don't need to justify playing something like Spooky Sight. But then if you face any aggro decks, I think it's like probably really difficult to win unless you like really high roll into Tinkerbells, into Vincenzos, and somehow stop them. So I think overall, I think how this I really like how this deck was constructed, because you've got Spooky Sights for your super aggressive matchups. You have the aerial, which actually helps out in both kind of the mid range and against the aggressive ones, as long as you can get it down early enough. And I actually just really like a lot of the ratios in here. So would love your thoughts as well, Thiago. Unfortunately, we don't have Sky, by the way, this week. I really wanted to hear Sky's thoughts on this, but since he's playing me in LCCC, I think he's scurrying to practice, night and day, every hour he has, he's just sweating, knowing that he has to play me. But yeah.
He is intimidated, yeah.
Yeah, curious to hear your thoughts, Thiago.
Yeah. I think both his losses were to aggro decks. I think he lost in Top Cut to Dogs, and I think he lost in Swiss, maybe Tamper Steel. I don't remember exactly, but I think the Spooky Sights just don't quite do enough, especially when you're going second. Like they're going 1, 2, 3, and then they're playing like they're like an Amber Steel deck on the play. Just go like 1 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, Pete, and they're just at like 25 lore or something, and you just were never able to play Spooky Sight. So I think like these decks do need some count of Captain Hook in them just to fight against the aggro decks. But with that being said, like Amber Steel is probably like 5% of the meta right now. So like now that there's an uptick in Dogs, it becomes more useful to play cards in your deck that's playing Goliath. Like if your Goliath is drawing into Spooky Sight and now you're not able to just like ink and unload your hand every turn because it's like you need to play the 7 cost, and then you can never ink the Spooky Sight to play your cheaper card, your Tipo or whatever, just to unload your hand and then refill with Goliath, it ends up clogging you quite a bit. So I'm not that much of a fan of the triple Spooky Sight. I think I'd rather see some number of Captain Hooks, but I think the Blue Steel shell is like for the most part somewhat solved. Like people are playing with like cutting some of the songs down a little bit, adding cards like Sudden Scare, but ultimately like the core of the deck is going to be the same throughout the entirety of the set, most likely.
Yep, that makes sense to me. I can see how the Spookies can definitely clog you as well, and the hooks. And I actually still really like the idea of the Mulans as well. The Mulan like being somewhat of a card that can still kind of combo with the Cinderella. It doesn't happen like so often, but it's just like a solid 1 drop that can really filter you. Get rid of the card you don't want, try to get you the card that you do want, right? So yeah, excited to see more builds as we move into the future. But moving on to LCCC territory, we have Ed's green-blue list. So I'm pretty excited to talk about this as a big green-blue player from the previous set. I think this is super solid. It's traditional Ed Chiu fashion, 4 of everything, lock it in, 60 locked in. But I think the mindset of this deck is actually really, really nice. You playing the full Clarabelle package if you really want to take advantage of the Clarabelle shift. That's the best way to do it. I think people have been going back and forth on just how useful, like trying to evaluate just how useful is Clarabelle in this current meta, right? So against the greedy Sapphire decks, stuff like Goliaths, like they kind of want to empty, they kind of want to empty their hand. They're not going to have an abundance of cards. But against stuff like Purple Steel, you can still get enough value out of like this Clarabelle. I think the idea of Clarabelle within Green Blue is still extremely good, and just playing full shift lines to get her out there means it's an immediate threat that your opponent still has to somewhat answer and somewhat respect. And if not, if they leave that on the board turn after turn after turn, it means that you are going to just be drawing so many cards. So yeah, I mean, the other things in here is there's a big one which is in the title here. No Cindy in Green Blue. So this is pretty much like set 9 Green Blue, except it just plays the shift line Prince Philip, the big Prince Philip. It plays Malicious Mean Scary, and it also plays 4 Mother Knows Best. Again, really trying to punish those greedy Sapphire decks. So if Cindy, if we didn't need Cindy last set and Green Blue was good, I think if this is the type of build that you're trying to do where you really want to fit in a full Clarabelle package, you really want to be doing the Prince Philip shift line, I think it makes sense. Like, would you agree, Thiago, that making a build like this to try and include a lot of the previous pieces of the puzzle from last set, and then also wanting to really maximize on the Prince Philip shift line? I'd also love to hear your opinion on actually playing the 3-cost Prince Philip in Green Blue versus not playing it, right? Because there are some decks that are just trying to do the Cinderella, Giga Ramp, and then you just get to playing your 9-cost Prince Philip. So would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so I think the Prince Philip 3-cost is like kind of important because this deck has so many dig cards between Develop Your Brain and Vision of the Future that you can just set up the threat or actually just the combo extremely early. Like you ramp on turn 2, you can play Prince Philip down on turn 3 or 4. Like if you do it on turn 3 with a sail, then you're already threatening to do it the next turn. And then you have all these like visions of the future to find these pieces, and then it actually like causes a lot of tension in the game where they need to vomit their hand out to play around Clarabelle, but if they vomit their hand out into your Prince Philip combo, then they're going to lose the game. So then they're kind of like in this bind where like you have looked through 20 cards of your deck because of Visions of the Future and all these kinds of cards, and it's like extremely likely that you have like whatever you're looking for, and then they don't have any like good way to play out the game. I think the Clarabelle is like this deck is really featuring the Clarabelle. That's why we see all of the shifts back. That's why we see the deck moving away from Cinderella. So because Cinderella is like kind of awkward in this deck, right? Because you want it to shift on 5, you like have stuff to do those turns. You don't really have stuff you want to do on 6 sync. So like I think that's ultimately why we see it not making the cut. And then it opens up a bunch of uninkable slots where you can play cards like Mother Knows Best. And then I know Ed really likes singing Mother Knows Best on his own Hades and then rebouncing the Hades, and then you play the Hades, and that costs you 0 ink to do, so that can be super strong. And he's obviously, as usual, going for maximum consistency. He did tell me that he thought the tournament was going to be closed deck list, and then he would have played a couple copies of Board Wipes if he had known that his opponent would see the deck list before they started playing. So I think there might be a couple spooky sites or Under the Seas or something moving forward. If you're playing this list, maybe trim some Mother Knows Bests for a couple spooky sites or something. But yeah, other than that, it's just like really focused on the Clarabelle shift, and it plays all of these consistency pieces to be able to do it as much as possible. The night before he played his match, we both thought his opponent was going to be playing like slow Purple Steel, and that's what he ended up playing. I think Ed might have like 8-0'd me or something like that. Matchup would seem so bad for slow Purple Steel. Like the things that this deck does are just like so powerful, and if any deck is like slightly slow into it, they just get like insanely punished.
Yeah, Zach, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that particular Mother Knows Best, because I believe it's a card you said you didn't like that much, right?
Yeah, so just like historically, I've hated the card. It makes more sense here when you're not playing Cindy's. You have a couple spots opened up, and you have Hades to replay. So it makes more sense in this list than I think it has any deck I've ever seen. But traditionally, I've hated it. I do want to talk about just like Ed philosophies in general. Like I really like that he's not afraid to take chances, like and do things different. If you look back at his North American Championship win, Genie had just came out. Everyone was preaching Genie. You have to play 4 Genies. If you don't, you're crazy. And if you look at that top 8, me and Ed were like the only people in the tournament. Ed completely cut Genie, and I only played 2, which is people would have thought was blasphemy. And we both made top 8. So like he's not afraid to take chances, and if he doesn't believe in something like Cindy in this list, I am totally fine with cutting Cindy because you don't have the princesses. Uh, so I just wanted to point that out. Like, no, he's not afraid to take chances, and yeah, I really like that. What I don't love is the always four ofs. I think you can optimize lists much better when they're not just straight four ofs of everything. Um, but with the closed deck list, like we were told it was closed deck list, it makes sense to run a list like this. Yeah. So, anyways, I'm fine with the Mother Knows Best because of Hades and because you have such few unequal spots.
Even
Yeah.
bouncing Prince Philip at a time is probably something you can do. If you still have a Philip on the board, and like I don't know, if it's nearly like you don't have to wait to find your second Philip. It's like if you vision to find your other malicious, mean, and scary, then you can try to do that again for the board wipe, right?
Yeah, and another thing about the Mother Knows Best, like you were talking about Goliath, when you have so many like Mother Knows Best in your welcome, like as soon as they drop the Goliath, if you're able to just like sing your welcome on it and then play your Clarabelle or like shift your Clarabelle and have that sing your welcome, like these cards are really good to get around the Goliath, which could potentially be a problem. And then it like also refills their hand a little bit, so you get some more cards. So it is nice in the context of the meta where a lot of people are playing that card. And then move it, building on what Zach said about the four ofs, I think in a deck like this where you have like these combo pieces and you're not trying to curve out and whatever, it like makes more sense. But like people will be playing decks like I see in Purple Steel a lot. People are just playing like all four ofs everywhere, and it's like the way to they're like I'm doing this so it's like the most consistent it can be, and like that technically like you're doing it in the way to like get these specific cards as frequently as possible, but that's not actually the most consistent, right? Like the most consistent way is like to draw a one drop on one and a two drop on two is not to play 8 8 12 12. Like if everything's in a multiple of 4, then it's not the like most consistent way to build your deck. It's like you want like 10 of this and like 10 1 drops and 9 2 drops and like 13 3 drops, and like you can't have these numbers, and your deck actually gets less consistent when you make everything a 4 of, just because like then you're playing like 12 1 drops, 8 2 drops, 12 3 drops. This is not the most consistent way to build your deck.
I love how Frank and Ed are on the same team. They must butt heads. So like it's the most opposite philosophies,
It's
right?
so funny. It's so
Yeah,
funny. Somebody will
yeah, I thought
post a
about
deck
that
list,
too.
and then Frank will be like, just play one copy of this card. Ed'll be like, just play 0, play 4, and it's just it's a disaster every single time. I cannot. It's so frustrating.
Sure. I guess actually, before we move on and stuff, I do want to ask you guys because I don't know if I did ask. Did we all secure tickets for Richmond? Yes.
Yes, that was very, very stressful, but we got there.
Nice.
Mine
Nice.
was nice and easy. And then for Ghent, I literally rolled out of bed like 9 minutes before the ticket started. Went in, I was like 249th in queue. I was like, oh wait, this is
Nice.
sick. And then it was
I
just like
was
super chill.
I was actually 3 minutes late. I forgot about it, and I joined, and I was 7,800 and like 68th in line, and somehow still got a ticket. So like,
Wow.
I'm very grateful. It was 4,000 tickets for that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in Ghent, I know people were like literally going into the queue at like 22 minutes past, and then like still
Jeez.
able to get tickets even though they were like 10K in line or something.
Yeah, I think it's good that there was a higher amount of tickets to be sold, so that was the case. But like, I know that they also opened the queue early and stuff, which I like. I don't know. I think the system helped people who maybe aren't there exactly on time to get the tickets, but I'm somebody that very much will be there on time, and if I'm there on time and people are getting in before me, it's like
Yeah, it's not cool.
Yeah,
it's not
that's
great. But listen, most people got tickets for it, so either way you
yeah,
can't complain, right? There's
It
yeah,
more tickets.
the 4,000 tickets is what solved all the problems. It wasn't
Exactly.
really like the new
really.
system or anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
True.
it also did have a crash where like it kicked people out of the people were like in the queue and then it crashed and people got kicked out, but I think ultimately many of them were still able to get the tickets. But yeah,
Yeah.
that is definitely very scary. Like if you're sitting there in queue and then it's like, oh no, just kidding, you're not 1,000th, you're actually 7,000th now.
Yeah.
It's very very stressful. But yeah, I somebody told me like before the thing started that the queue is gonna pop early, and then I was like, oh okay, I'll go in. And so yeah, if I didn't have that, then I would have
Wow,
been very
I
stressed.
Thiago with the knowledge, bro. Oh my god,
Yeah,
I didn't know
well,
that.
yeah, it was just a player. Like someone just like said in a Discord chat, and I'm like, that's cool.
Tiago's
Interesting.
in like 8,000 Discord channels. He's always mentioning random Discord channels. Yeah,
Crazy.
he knows
Okay,
everything.
let's move on to the next list, which it looks super, super, super cool. This is Lukas Kaupa, which I mean, If you guys don't know Lukas, he's an Austrian player. This guy is so good at Lorcana, in my opinion. He builds decks that are super, super cool, super unique. This is very reminiscent of the deck that he played, I want to say, in the Sweden CCQ, which also had Chippendales and Circle of Life. So this man was playing Circle of Life before people, in my opinion, like were really trying it. Like I feel like people were giving it a shot in set 9, but I think Lukas put a lot of testing into it, and I think he played this big Chippendale back then in set 9. He's still on the 2 copies now. I think this card is honestly very, very cool, very, very interesting. It's a card that you don't see a lot of the time. Whenever this gets played against you, because I know Moyen was testing this a lot against me back before Bologna, this is a card you're like, man, I want to get rid of this card immediately, because it just gets so much value each turn it's on the board. Ink, get a big character back. Ink, get a big character back. But what I want to focus on in Lukas's deck is, since we've got the new set, is showing off a lot of the shiny new toys in here. Even opting to play the Simba, which I think it's a very bold move. Like, Simba is a card that's super expensive, boost 3 is quite a lot, but if there's ever a deck where Simba does make sense, potentially, it's probably this, because you play a lot of big characters, you use Circle of Life to cheat it out for free, so then you're able to just use some of your leftover, and you haven't paid any ink, so you just pay 3 ink to actually activate the Simba. It's playing the Webby shift line, it's still got some Pluto, Huey, like the Mickey Mouse shenanigans. This Dale is pretty good at being able to just like send a few things into your discard as well. It's playing the 3 cost Clarabelle shift line versus the 1 cost one. The only thing I'll say about a deck like this, which I'm very curious to hear you guys' thoughts on, is in a Circle of Life deck, and then now that you're playing Simbas, it kind of changes it up as well. I'm always curious on what the rough estimate of the correct number of 1-drops to play is, because in this deck, like I said, you got Simba, you want to have a high quantity of just like good hits, but Tramp, 7-cost Tramp is so key to making this deck work as well, because what often happens is you'll play the 7-cost Tramp, you'll discard some of the big cards that you have in your hand in place of trying to find the Circle of Lives, the bigger cards, the Malicious Mean and Scary, for example, to do maybe a Prince Philip combo. So in my opinion, always trying to make sure you have enough 1-drops is quite important. And in this particular build, I see 10, which I think is probably quite close to the number that you want. So yeah, I'll pass it to you first, Zach. Super, super cool list. A lot to kind of break down, but what are your first impressions when you look at this?
There's a lot going on for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if Simba is correct or not, but the reason that you can play it in here is because obviously you can Circle of Life it for free. Mm-hmm. So it's not like a 10-cost activation. You can actually pull it off in this. So it makes a lot more sense in this context. I know we were really low on it when we initially talked about that.
Yeah.
And the 1-drops is an interesting thing too. I think that I don't think you can really worry about the Simba as far as your 1-drops. I just have to include them. I like that your 1-drop Pluto and your Huey can float your mana for you for later turns.
Yeah.
So I think that's quite good. I have to read the Gazelle, honestly. There's so much going on in here.
Singer 7, and when you play this character, you may put a song card from your discard on the top of your deck.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, the deck seems fine. I actually just watched his match, and he lost to Dan because he doesn't play any Under the Sea, and obviously Dan pulled off Under the Sea, and it was over. So I guess depending on how popular the mirror matches are, as far as that goes.
This deck does get wiped out by Under the Sea as well most of the time. So yeah.
Yeah, because if they do it early, like you'll never build the momentum to get to the later stuff. Yeah, there's just too much to even go over it all here. You definitely need to test it to be able to talk too much about it, but I think it has potential. Circle of Life in general definitely has potential.
Yeah, and it's funny how you talk about how he lost the game to Under the Sea when before we were talking about the Ursula Deceiver versus Mowgli split, and then he opts to go for 3 Mowglis and 0 Ursulas, and then ends up losing to Under the Sea. So it's that's something to look out for, something that we're gonna see evolving, I'm sure. This Simba is obviously one of the flashiest cards in the deck, but we would typically see just more copies of Surfer Stitch. So when you see the Simba, you really have to compare it to Surfer Stitch, and if the Simba's not giving you a giant ink advantage by putting monsters into play, it's probably just worse than having the Surfer Stitch, which can hit your songs, which are some of your most impactful cards. So that one I'm definitely not sure about. Um, in regards to what you were talking about, the Tramp 7 and like playing enough early characters
Hmm.
for it, I think it's a lot easier in a deck like this where you can just like ink a bunch, whereas the more aggressive versions just don't want to ink that much, so
Mm.
then they really need a lot of these cheap characters. Whereas this one, you can like go to 4 ink and like if you have 3 characters on board, just hard cast it, or if you have 2 characters on board and one of them's a Huey or Pluto, you can just like play it and then the next turn play out your hand. So it's a lot less important when you have like cards like this 3 cost Clarabelle, which are drawing you a card and developing a body to
Hmm.
kind of bridge you into that mid game a little bit. Something I'm interested in is we're seeing 2 copies of the 9 cost Philip and 3 copies of Malicious Mean and Scary.
Mm.
I think when the set first came out, everybody was just slamming 4 copies of everything into all their decks. 4 9 cost Prince Philip, 4 Malicious Mean and Scary. Oh wait, this isn't good enough. I need some of the little shift targets. I'm going to put 4 copies of those, and we're really seeing the numbers evolve. I think in something like blue green, it makes a lot of sense to play a lot of these copies just because your only card draws like Clarabelle, and then you're drawing this like giant load of cards really quickly, and then you like have these filter effects to like put together the rest of the pieces. But um, I think the first time I saw people cutting it down was like the Mo Shamblin green purple kind of lists, where I was playing fewer copies of Malicious Mean and Scary, and I think since then he's even cut it down some more. So um, I'm very curious to see where people are going to land on that. I think it's a very delicate balance because these cards like there's a lot of air in a lot of these decks, especially if they're playing like Mother Knows Best and You're Welcome or whatever, or this one that's playing all of these like cards like Gazelle and like these expensive songs and like some of these wonky characters that don't do too much. That like if you end up drawing these combo pieces when they're not put together, then you kind of just like are doing nothing for the game.
Yeah, it's a super interesting build, and I'm looking forward to seeing Lukas play a little bit more. I didn't catch the game, but I'll be sure to rewatch it. It seems like it would be quite a fun one to watch. But yeah, moving on. Speaking about Mo Shamblin, Zach, correct me if I'm wrong. Is this the exact build that we did see last week? Right? It is the same deck.
No, he's changed it for sure.
Okay,
It's definitely updated.
cool. Would you mind? I mean, I'm not sure if you've spoken to Mo, but I saw in
No.
the comments last week. We were like, Mo, what are you doing? And he's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
Zach,
yeah.
these are the reasons I'm doing this. Come on, brother. Yeah.
Yeah. So my comment last week was that elephant just like caught my eye. Like, what in the world is elephant doing in here? Is that like a band-aid for purple still? And he was like, he gave his reasoning. Basically, like you're boosting your Flynn Rider, and now you're bouncing it and drawing cards,
Mm-hmm.
and that it was a purple still band-aid. So yeah, thanks for the comment, Mo. I don't know exactly the cards he's changed. I know that the Aquila card, I don't remember that being in there before, and it's kind of cool. Like you can just dump all your extra ink into that every turn, can kill basically anything. So that card's cool. I know right off the bat, like I don't like this Lewis. Now I'm sure he has his reasons for it or whatever, but I think like what's it really good against right now? I guess the dogs deck, and that's it.
Mm.
Like it's very bad into blue, not good into purple still because you just trade with a hook or
Yeah.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, overall, I think this deck's really cool, and he just released a guide. So if you guys want to learn the deck, you should definitely check him out on Twitter and his Metafy and such. I think dude's a genius. Like I love playing him at Worlds, hearing him talk. He's definitely one of the people I respect the most in Lorcana. So yeah.
Yeah, Mo's such a great player and like the genuinely the nicest dude ever. Like everybody, there's
Mm,
so many people in the scene who like you hear people they're like, oh, that guy's the nicest dude ever. Like Mo is so insanely nice.
yeah.
Nice. But yeah, I mean this deck's super cool. I like a lot of the changes he made, adding cards like the Akela, the Louis. Like I think green and purple just as a color combination really struggles to play for board early. I think it mostly has to do with just like that the 2 cost characters you want to play are cards like go to Mago and Ursa Deceiver, who are just like really bad at playing for board, as opposed to some of these other curve out decks like Red Purple, which are playing the 2 cost Diablo, or Purple Steel, which are playing Calhoun. Like if you're playing an Ursula Deceiver on turn 2, you're really falling behind. And so being able to like have these impactful 3 cost characters that challenge the board really well is a nice way to solve that kind of problem. He's adding the 4 cost Demona, which is a card that we've seen pick up quite a bit of steam over this weekend. Just being able to challenge stuff is really sweet. He appears to have cut the 6 cost Demona, which is like a card that those two kind of work kind of well together because you're able to like exert their things down and then challenge them. But um, We also see him cut the 3-cost Clarabelle, which is kind of interesting. He gets rid of all of his shift targets, so he's playing 4 of the big Clarabelle with no shift targets. Um, but yeah, I mean this deck's super solid. I think the Webby just like dominates all the blue decks, right? So it just like it's so hard for them to play when you're just like, okay, I draw 6 cards for free and like get 10 inks worth of acceleration this game, just like over 3 turns or something, and then uh, the the way that this deck is able to like create card advantage for itself, you like so frequently have the tools to be able to compete with anything, and then the deck like very quickly turns the corner where if you just like randomly stick like a genie and a webby for on board, then you're just like randomly add a ton of lore, and then like you play like 2 Flynn Riders in a turn, and then you like boost them both, and then you're just like finishing the game with Go-Go instantly, and like you have all these bounce effects for Go-Go's. So the deck does like a ton of super interesting things, and it's like very, very tricky to know what's going on when you're playing against it. So I mean, I've been having a ton of fun playing it. I think it is definitely a strong deck. I think the matchup into some of the other curve out decks can be a little tricky, like the purple tempo decks. But when you're playing against like blue steel, it feels really good. Feels like super decent into green blue. I think um, I'd be curious to know how it plays into the aggro decks. I know that like adding a card like Lewis kind of polarizes you in that way. That, like if you do draw Lewis, it's like super, super strong into their Tianas and stuff. So, especially since you have cards like Ursula to protect your Lewis, basically,
Yeah.
like it gets rid of the song that the Tiana could sing to not have to recklessly attack. So it kind of builds together kind of nicely. So yeah, I mean, it's a super, super sick deck, but I would definitely recommend you guys watch Mo's video if you're going to try to play it because it is very, very tricky.
Yeah, I think on paper it looks like it's like I like it. It's like very new and it's like a very different take of kind of green purple from what we've seen before. Like it's just cool because it includes a lot of the new cards, right? And like stuff like this Aquila is quite interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think Mo is definitely going to be leaving another comment this week explaining to us with the Lewis inclusion. Is I mean, let's be realistic. Like it probably is just there for like the aggro matchups to have a little bit of security against them. But yeah, Mo Shamblin doing Mo things. Um, all right.
Yeah,
Let's go ahead. Go ahead, Tiago.
this card, if you include the Prince Philips, which were like not played before but are only played now because of the combo, it's literally 30 new cards. Half the deck is new cards, and if you don't include them, it's 24 new cards. So
Yeah, it's
40% of the
crazy.
deck is set 10 cards. So he's really really making the most out of the new set more than anybody else.
That's great to see, though. Okay, so I've got a bit of a fun deck I want to show off. So the next one we're going to talk about is uh, Amber Ruby. I would say apologies to folks because we have like a different format. This is from Index instead of Dreamborn, so it might be a bit harder to. If you guys don't know what the cards do, feel free to look them up. But yeah, this came top 64 at the Prague CCQ last week. I could see Zach taking a look at some of these cards, probably reading what they do. So this one's gonna be a bit of a weird one, I think, for all of us to break down because we're not really used to seeing this this color combination. And like just Ruby in general. The point of this was I wanted to show off a cool Ruby deck, but now that I look at this deck, it's like 70% Amber and like 30% Ruby. It's got the Horseman, you've got Scar, you've got Bronx, you got this big bodyguard Minnie Mouse, and you've got Maleficent Dragons. But I think the concept is kind of cool and a little bit interesting because you've still got the Pluto and Huey package for a lot of kind of character based ramp. You've got the Rapunzel comboing with a lot of the support characters. Granted, it's a little bit strange because most of the support characters in here are quite expensive ones, like the Judy and the Blue. You don't really have any like cheap support characters, but it seems like there's probably some sort of like stable game plan that you do with this, where you're supposed to try and go Pluto into this, into I mean like Pluto Raja protecting Pluto, playing a bunch of other things as well. The Horseman to maybe help out against like the aggro decks a little bit, but I just don't know what this does like against the big greedy blue decks. I feel like this has gotta struggle a lot. Like Horseman Strikes is like okay against the Philip, but like I don't know how. I mean that Horseman deals with Vincenzo, but against like all of the other just like big threats, I don't know what you're doing against it exactly. And for card draw, like what are we relying on this 8-cost Donald Duck that once you play it, you just tap all of your characters to draw more cards? Like I don't know, like and then I guess Surfer Stitch as well. So very creative deck, very new deck, lots of new cards. So I would have passed this to you, Zach, because I mean, you're a Amber Ruby guy. You're one of the few. You had a lot of faith in this deck, right? Very different version
Most
of this
successful Amber Ruby player of all time.
Yep, indeed.
Dude, there's so much going on here. I said last week that I love the Pluto into Raja combo with the big 3/4 bodyguard. So you have the Pluto and the Hueys into Raja, which is really cool. I like the Goofy as well. Like if you somehow ready your Plutos or Huey with that, I know it needs like a damage counter, I think, but
it does. Yeah,
that's cool too. I really like this Rapunzel into Baloo thing. So like you target Baloo with support and give it a shield essentially. So now they have to attack into like a 3/8 bodyguard twice or whatever. Like kill it twice essentially. I don't know. That's a really cool combo. Scrooge activating Simba is another interesting thing, though I don't know how often you're really gonna pull that off. But that's cool. I don't know about this Scar either. Like, oh, man, there's so much going on.
There's an interesting thing I wanted to say, which is like a card that's missing from this deck that I think would be quite interesting, especially when you're playing two big bodyguards like the Mini and the Blue, is actually the Mickey Mouse Amber Champion, right? We talked about that. That's in the Circle of Life decks where you're not playing any songs, but I think that, in my honest opinion, I think that card's good enough with the +2 ability, and you've got so many strong Amber cards in here. Like, I'm going to give a shout out to Martin. When I was at after we finished streaming the CCQ in Paris, we played Sealed, and this man in Sealed played the Amber Champion Mickey into Baloo against me, and I had to use my entire board to get through like a 3/10 bodyguard. It's just insane. So I honestly think that's a good consideration that you could think about including in this deck, because you've got so many good Amber cards in this already. I don't think you need the Singer ability to profit. I think the baseline +2 to all your Amber characters is just good enough. So it's just a very cool deck.
I love the deck. It's super awesome. It's definitely a little too linear, I think, to really be successful. But yeah, it's got a lot of cool stuff going on. Definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, Thiago, you have any comments on this?
Yeah, I think the 4-cost Minnie Mouse bodyguard is like really cool to add the consistency to like your Pluto Raja lines. Like you can instead go Pluto Raja, or you can go Pluto Minnie Mouse or Pluto or Huey Minnie Mouse, and like the Minnie Mouse works well as a bodyguard for those characters, whereas some of the other bodyguards people have played, like if people are playing Amber Steel and they play like the 4-cost Pluto that we always see, like that card does not do a super great job of bodyguarding these characters. Like if they have like a Captain Hook and a Calhoun in play or something, it's like really poor. Whereas this Minnie Mouse is like quite good against these little characters. The 5-cost Scar is kind of interesting. It looks like they literally like put in 4 Headless Horsemen in their deck and then they cut 2 of them for 2 Scar. So I'd have to like go through all the decks and like see what the characters are that have more than 2 attack but like 2 health, and so it doesn't die to the Headless Horseman but it dies to Scar instead. But I mean the Scar pinging your own guys has a lot of utility also with cards like this Goofy or this Minnie Mouse or Julieta. But this 8-cost Donald is so funny to me. It's like they're actually just playing it fairly. Like I've only seen this card with Monstro, but they're actually just playing it to exert their characters and draw cards. That's so funny. But I mean, it works kind of nicely with like Bronx and these bodyguards, so it's not the worst thing, but it looks so funny. And yeah, they just like cut a lot of their early curve to really maximize the Simba, which is a direction to go. I think you don't need to have the super early curve in this meta. I think you can kind of get away with cheating a little bit, especially if you have these explosive Pluto Huey draws. And I do think the Bronx kind of covers for you in some of those aggressive matchups kind of well. But yeah,
I think the deck is super cool. Like I think it is a very cool deck. I think this person spent a lot of time like really thinking about a lot of the synergies in here. Like we talked about the Goofy as well. Like I think this Goofy just combos so well with these bodyguards that they're just so big to get through. Like can you imagine your opponent just decides, like especially something like this Minnie Mouse is so tempting. It's like, okay, why wouldn't I just like put some damage on this while I could? Like why don't I just put 5 damage on this and then go, oh okay, I'll like. If I need to like turn these cards into like I need to ready them to then quest rather than be bodyguards, right? So like there's some weird synergy in there that when you want to turn on the bodyguard versus when you want to turn off the bodyguard, and yeah, I think it's super cool. It is also important to note there is Pongo in there as well that is a little bit more card draw, which is going to be hitting basically every time you only have the Horseman Strikes. Would you think another good inclusion potentially if we see so many like we're talking about these greedy Sapphire decks is maybe World's Greatest Criminal Mind to combo with some of the support stuff, right? So you support one of your opponent's things, you do World's Greatest Criminal Mind. I think maybe not because the support characters are quite costly here. I mean, wait, what do we even have? Is it only 2 support characters? No, you got Judy, Baloo, and Rapunzel, and I think that's it, right? Yeah. So
That could be good enough. I think that like if you don't change anything when you add the World's Greatest Criminal Mind and only have these 6 support characters, like that's enough to support a couple copies. But
yeah.
I think you could also add like there's some other fine support characters that you could play. But yeah, I think it's a reasonable inclusion. It's just scared to dilute the Simba, which I would not be that scared of. I think it's fine if you add some more whiffs. Like I don't think hitting like some of these like lower end characters is like that much worse than just whiffing. And I think that's definitely a reasonable inclusion for sure.
Makes sense. All right, moving on to the next deck list. You picked this one out here, Thiago. We did want to showcase another Ruby deck. It is Sapphire Ruby. I feel like... no, I didn't talk about this. I did a community stream with Fanfinity where we did like a deck doctor on a Ruby Sapphire deck, and we tried to analyze it and improve it and see what inclusions we could like make to it and make it a little bit better. So that was actually really interesting. So I do have a little bit of experience, at least talking about this deck with its set 10. Definitely not playing so much, but yeah, this finished. Do we know where this placed, Thiago, in the Barcelona CCQ by chance?
Yeah, so it was a 322 player tournament, and he did make the top 32.
Wow.
So a very good finish for this deck, which the deck for sure looks crazy. Like I don't know what's going on at all. We're playing this like Goliath just like for fun, just because he's like a 5/5, and our deck like doesn't draw cards, and I don't know, it's sick.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of interesting things. Like the idea of how you make red blue good is if you want to actually utilize like the maybe half shark and stuff, I just think you really need to be giving this card rush as soon as it comes down. So I think that the David Xanatos is when you play this chosen character gains rush, like there's different things. I like there's some other ways where you could do like Mushu's Rocket as well to maybe give them maybe half shark rush. On the spooky side, yeah, I think you need something like Medallion Weights because red blue's really lost out on card draw as well. That's why we probably see the Robin Hoods in here as well. I mean, Cinderella helps out a tiny bit with card draw, but I mean, you know, I don't think we're going to have the most knowledge to really dive into how good is red blue. We know it's not a very good deck in the meta, but I wanted to show it off to say like props to this player for doing so well, making top 32, because it's not an easy feat to do when Ruby isn't doing so great at the moment.
Yeah, I think this deck has like a pretty cool mixture where it plays like the Headless Horseman and Hades and Maleficent Dragon, where like you're not able to play all these cards in other combinations, obviously because they're red and blue cards, but like you're not able to play the Maleficent Dragon super easily outside of Sapphire decks just because you're not able to get to that much ink. Like people have been trying to include in red purple. I don't think it's a good card in red purple. And so kind of having all of these characters that remove something when they come in, and like just curving them one after the other can put like a lot of pressure on the opponent's board, and it's not really something that other color combinations have access to.
It's also built to just beat the... I mean, it has some elements to try and be okay against the mid-range and aggro decks with the spookies and like the Goliath, probably. Like that's the line you want to go. But like, yeah, I think in theory Maleficent Dragon actually seems like a really good card in this meta if people, again, are playing big bombs each turn. Maleficent just removes it and puts a big body on the board herself. So in theory, it kind of makes sense, and I could see how a deck like this made its way. You know, if it hit a certain amount of matchups potentially. But let's round this out. I think with Amethyst Steel. Shout out to Melissa from the Forbidden Mountain. She took down a 3K event this past weekend. And it's a very, very similar build to Frank Carson's list, a couple of different ratios and stuff. But we don't have to dive too deep into this specific list because I think we already have in the previous weeks, which is how Frank built it and stuff. So, but from Thiago, what I'd like to hear from you is, like, what's your opinion on just like the place of Purple Steel in the current meta? Did you expect it to like remain in this slot of a deck that so many people are still playing, and it's probably considered to be like the mid-range deck, right? The mid-range deck that could also has these Timothy Q Mouse and these Tinkerbells that can really turn on the gas. So I say mid-range, but against a lot of these greedier Sapphire decks, they can still kind of aggro out in a sense, right?
Yeah, I think the sort of consensus right now is just that Purple Steel's the best deck. It's by far the most represented in tournaments. Like in, I think every single major tournament, it's been the most represented decks. Some tournaments, the second place deck is close to it. Some tournaments, not so much. But I think it's certainly one of the top decks. I think people are not playing enough of the decks that are good into it to kind of keep it in check. So like it becomes the best deck. But I think like people, in my opinion, people like way overreact each way or another. So like 2 weeks ago, Blue Steel's like the greatest deck ever created, unbeatable, and now it's like complete garbage, bottom of C tier deck. Like you should never play it. It's like it was a good deck 2 weeks ago, and it's a good deck now, and like it was never the greatest thing of all time. And so like I think people are probably going to play some more Purple Steel over the next week or two, just because a lot of the decks that we're keeping in these big Sapphire strategies are like kind of falling in meta share. I think right now, the deck that's been performing the best has been Dogs, and Purple Steel has historically had a good matchup into Dogs. I know some of the Dog players like their matchup, but I think they will have a very challenging time if they're queuing into a lot of Purple Steels throughout a tournament run. But yeah, I mean, huge shout out to Melissa. I'm a big fan of hers. Glad that she was able to get this win. This is probably like literally like 56 of the cards I would play or something. So like if you're playing this, like you should just copy Melissa. She's a beast. She had a really good season last set, so I'm happy she's already off to a good start right now.
It's funny you mentioned about like, you know, this deck's matchup with the Dogs. You know, Melissa's a big Dogs player, especially.
Yeah.
Like she really liked that deck, and she played it extremely well. I casted a couple of games for her, and she crushed it on that deck. But yeah, I mean, the takeaway I want to mention is if the master of Purple Steel himself, Mr. Thiago, is telling you guys, you know, people aren't playing enough of the decks that are actually good into this. I think that's something you should keep up here. You should think about, right? Like I think we're seeing you mentioned this when we kind of did a rough tier list evaluation last week, where there are a lot of these decks that I think we had around C tier ish, right? That have way more potential than people actually realize this set. And an example of the color combination at least was like green purple, right? Like maybe Mo's build, maybe a different version of green purple. I've been seeing whispers of like curve red purple, right? And the thing is, people aren't going to discover these decks because they're going to look at tournament results. No one's broken through the whole thing without, like, you know, these decks aren't absolutely crushing it, aren't getting like top 8 finishes. But that's because most people are just playing these top decks that we're talking about, right? Like I think a bit more experimentation, a bit more risk taking is what's needed to say, okay, yeah, like think about if a red purple deck or if a green purple deck won a tournament. Way more people are on it instantly on it. Like huge respect, they've broken through, right? So I think that's just like how metas are shaped. People look at tournaments and say, oh, this is like a good tournament winning deck. I'll just play it, right? Like how do you feel about that type of thing, Thiago? Like it's you've played so many card games, right? Not just Lorcana, but just like that mentality around a meta, right?
Yeah, and I don't even think like those decks are like the hard counters to Purple Steel or whatever. I think like it just in general, like something like Blue Steel, like people are just like it's dramatically dropped in play rate and stuff. But just like generally addressing it, like I think that it's people, especially when we're in a meta where we're building off of last meta where there was a rotation and people are kind of transferring over. I think in this game, like there's so much more like ability to like experiment and figure out new things, especially since like people have access to like different simulators or whatever where they can get the cards way before the set comes out, and you are able to like make proxies and test whatever. Like you don't need to like be locked into the top couple decks. Like I think over the last 3 weeks I've probably played like maybe 1/20th of my games across like the decks that everyone was like considering the 3 best decks. Like I think that it's obviously risky for somebody to like try something new and then go to a tournament and like you paid a bunch of money to go and all these travel expenses and like you don't get to play 24/7, and so like it's easy to fall back on what you know. But like there a lot of the like players who do have like the resources to be able to go to every tournament and like the time to be able to practice and whatever, like are very scared to try out new things. And I think it's just like so low risk to just like try out stuff. Like you don't have to take something risky to the DLC, but like to practice with something else is
Yeah, to
like
practice with stuff, right?
definitely, yeah. It's so I think the meta is a lot more healthy than people thought it was going to be, like with their initial opinions. And I think that there's a lot of different ways to attack a lot of these decks. And we have tools, right? Like these blue decks were dominating, and then now we're seeing all of these different green decks with Webby, and Webby just like on her own destroys them. Or we're seeing like Dogs, which doesn't even need the Webby shift to like still be very good into these blue decks. And so, yeah, I think it's kind of awkward that we only have like one big DLC in the West that's going to happen throughout this cycle, and it's going to be in January, which is like towards the end of the set cycle. Like if we had a big tournament now, and then like because we do have DLC Singapore, but like a lot of the players who are in the metas that we are around are not going to be attending that. So I think we would have seen like a bunch of different evolutions with the same card pool. But yeah, I think going back to Purple Steel, it's like obviously a super solid choice. It'll always be good. Like I think you really can't go wrong playing Purple Steel. Like it just has such a strong matchup spread. It's so consistent. It even in the matchups where like you're supposed to be bad, like as you were saying, like you have these Tinkerbells and Timothys where you can like go under them, and so you have the tools in every single matchup. It's like uh sometimes you can just like get unlucky and like not find the right 2-drop or the right 3-drop to like pressure a blue steel deck or something. And sometimes like they're just playing like a bunch of these like tech cards for you, like the 5-cost Jasmine and whatever. But at the end of the day, like you are reliant on so many more outside factors when you're submitting a deck like Purple Steel than you are when you're playing something else. Like if you win the die roll, if you play into a bad matchup, if you draw poorly, like the Purple Steel is like so resilient to all those things that, especially in like a multi round tournament, it's going to be a super good choice.
I want to pass this to you, Zach, just briefly before we move on to the very last deck, because I know like you're someone that's like really not afraid of like taking risks and trying new decks. Like we saw that throughout the entire first season of Lorcana, where you like really brought some interesting things. Like I think I might go back to the example of when like I still remember you was one of the first people bringing green yellow, right, to like a big event. And of course like you probably worked on that deck with a lot of people, or maybe you kind of worked on it yourself and spent a lot of time. But going into a certain event, as Thiago said, kind of taking that risk, right, that risk of like, I'm going into a big event, do I want to play something that is like probably pretty like consistent, safe, I know it should do pretty good, I can maybe high roll a little bit, like it's interesting, like the amount of time and resources and work you have to do to put in to then feel confident, say like this is something good. I feel like I'm in a really, really good spot. I'd love to hear your like mentality surrounding that and trying new strategies and trying new decks, if that's okay.
Yeah. So Lorcana, the way the world structure works, like 20 people basically make it. Like you have to take risks if you're gonna get there. So basically, my mentality last year was I'm going to win the tournament, and so I'm going to be taking this risk. That's why I was number 1 seed twice, number 3 seed. That's why I dominated a lot last year, because I was taking these risks. I would rather win the tournament, give myself the best chance to win the tournament, and maybe I flame out and have a really bad event. Like Bologna was really bad for me, because I played a more because I took a riskier choice. Basically, my mentality is always I'm trying to win the tournament. I'm not trying to make top cut.
Yeah.
Which changes a little bit this year, because now you just need to make top 32 to get the Continentals qualification. Yeah. So the structure is a little different. But last year my whole mindset was I'm trying to win this entire tournament. I'm not just trying to make day 2 or whatever. So I'm taking these chances, giving myself the best chance to high roll into the World's Invite or something. Like,
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have any fear. Like a lot of players got to 5 wins last year and then wanted to ID the last 4 rounds to make it. And like I'm gonna go for it. I already have 5 wins. Why would I not try to get number 1 seed by winning another game? And if I miss day 2 because of it, so be it. Like I don't fear that at all. Like a lot of people are scared to do that, but yeah, definitely not me.
Sure. No, I think that's a great mentality to have, and like it showed like your risk and that mentality really paid off for you last year, as you said, right? And like as the format changes this year, that mentality might potentially change, right? But no, I think that's super insightful. So before we close out, Thiago, you wanted to talk about one last like dogs deck. What's the particular reason why you wanted to share this list with the viewers?
Yeah, I mean, this is another list from one of the players that we showed last week. This one is going in a bit of a different direction where it's not playing the Under the Sea. And so Under the Sea is like a card where right now now that we're seeing more dogs popping up, it can be very good in that matchup. But of course, these decks are playing multiple Mowglis and Ursulas and whatever. And so they're able to kind of attack it. It's not like the end all be all like it used to be. And so just showing the option, like you don't have to play Under the Sea. This player made 2 CCQ top cuts in a row, and he was like the 1 seed by like a bajillion match points over everybody. He was like completely dominating, even though he eventually did fall in the top cut bracket. So it's an option. You don't have to play the Under the Seas. Yeah.
Cool.
And touching back on what Zach said, I just want to say that the people who took risks last year got very rewarded. Like DKP was playing a red-blue deck nobody was playing. He won the DLC and qualified to Worlds. Like, Ed was playing a completely weird red-purple deck. People were winning. Josh won a DLC with, like, yellow-purple or whatever.
Yeah,
so, like, the people did get rewarded, and that's... I'm not even saying, like, you have to go to Continentals and bring a weird deck, but, like, just try them, you know? That's where I think a lot of the very swingy opinions come, where, like, this is the greatest thing of all time, this is garbage. This is the greatest thing of all time, this is garbage. It's just, like, people didn't actually, like, try all of the decks, so then they're like, this is just the deck I'm playing today, and I won a lot, so now it's the greatest thing of all time, and then, like, I played against this deck, and it lost a lot, so now it's horrible, and then the next week, like, I actually played this deck and tried it, and it's actually pretty good, so, like, so I think, like, the big opinion come from, like, people just, like, not playing the decks that they're playing against, and then that's where they kind of form it. So like right now, there's no tournaments going on. Just like play random stuff.
I do want to mention one more thing about that. Like just in life in general, you should just be like humble when you fail and not afraid to fail, not worry about what people think about you. Because I think a lot of players are scared of going. Like in Bologna, I went 4-4, and I don't care. I'm not afraid. I've had all the success, but yeah, I had a 4-4 tournament, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what anyone thinks about it. So, like, my mentality is I'm taking these risks, and if I fell and go 4-4, who cares? I don't have to keep up with what anyone thinks about it. So just having that mentality to be humble enough that if it goes great, that's amazing, and if you fell, who cares? That like, yeah, I don't know. Just be humble.
Yeah, I think that's a great point you make. Like, I spoke about it like when I played like the DLC Milwaukee. I think the first thing I said to both of you was like, I don't care if it's nice to do well, but like if I had a bad run, I know I still would have like really enjoyed the event. And I'm not saying that you should have low expectations of yourself. Like I went into that tournament knowing that I knew how to play green blue. Like I felt good on the deck, but I wasn't like I'm gonna make day 2, right? Like, and I think that is some like I mean I'm a very just different person, I'll say in general, to maybe some of the top competitors like you guys, right? Like I'm in a different place. I'm engaging with the game in like I would say like still a very competitive sense, but like maybe more like semi-pro, right? Like the time and resources I put into it is like a lot different than maybe the time and resource that you guys would put into it. But like my mentality going into that was, if I fail, it's completely fine. I had like no pressure on myself, no pressure whatsoever, and I think it's maybe some of the internal pressure that you put on yourself, or like everybody wants to perform, but that ultimately for me made my weekend like incredibly cool when I day 2 it and I had that really good performance. And like it sucks that I also like technically now I missed the Simba. I was off 1 win that I didn't get that, but like I'm like I don't care. Like I'm so proud of my performance. It made that weekend so good, and I don't know. It's just like the idea of like having pressure on yourself versus want to do good. Like we always want to do good, but the more you go to more events, the more risks you take. Like you're not like no one's gonna run hot forever. It just doesn't happen. We're playing a card game, right? It's like people pop off and then people don't pop off. People play decks like you mentioned, Zach, that like your goal is like I'm gonna take this risk. I'm spiking. I'm winning this tournament. I'm going into this top seed, right? But if you didn't make that decision, you could have just played something a little safer and like you could have just went on a fine run. You could have like maybe day 2, maybe not day 2, right? It's very very different. So. Yeah, like take take risks. I will advise for the most part, like the reason why we do these meta videos, right, is these are good decks that you guys, if you want to be competitive, you want to come into the scene, like, yeah, you could probably just copy them. You could probably just copy them, get some reps in, try some things. But for me as well, it's like, I like to play decks like this, and I like to say, okay, what changes would I make? What have I felt playing this deck? The more games I play, what change do I want to make? What change do I want to make? Like, I think it's really important to talk about, like, we make these videos to try and help people be more knowledgeable about the meta, and also try and figure out this deck in general is like should be better into this, or this deck is a little bit weaker into this, and these are the reasons why certain cards are included in here. So it's about like educating people on why certain decisions are made. And oftentimes we look at decks and we're also like, yeah, I don't know why this person played this. It's maybe it's because of this reason, and then we learn through a comment or through something else the reason why it's there. And I think that's what's so cool is like the discoverability that you get through playing this game and through deck building. Yeah, Lorcana is an awesome game. We love this game. Yeah, if you guys have any final words, we can close it after this. But it's man, it's so cool to be able to just talk about this game each week, share our thoughts, and just like come together. I hope this is the thing with the podcast. I really hope that these conversations are like similar to the ones that people are just having amongst their own communities, amongst their own groups and stuff. That's what I want us to feel like, and I think we do a good job doing that, to be honest. So
yeah. It's super cool. Like everybody in the community that I've interacted with has like been so cool. It's like very different from other games I played. Ultimately, like competing is a vulnerable thing. Like you're going there and then like if you go like 1-3, it like stinks. You like have to like go home and your partner's like, "Oh my God, how'd you do?" And you're like, "Oh, I stink." And it sucks. But ultimately, like I think nobody you care about your result more than anybody else. Nobody's like sitting around the table and be like, did you know that guy went 1-3 at the set champs?
No one's doing
that.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, last set champ season, like this person went 2-2 3 times. It's like no one ends up doing it. So like, just take a deep breath. Like, it's hard to put yourself out there and go to these tournaments, and like when it doesn't feel good and whatever. But like, just know that like at the end of the day, it's like just focus on yourself, and like everyone else is focusing on themselves for the most part. That like, if you just remove what other people think, I think it like takes away a lot of the pressure on yourself.
Mentality of losing is a thing that's incredibly difficult to master, in my opinion. I think I've spoken to Moyne about this a lot, and Moyne's had so many moments throughout his card game career. Like I remember he was like super close to qualifying for Hearthstone Worlds and was playing like a massive game, and he still looks back and says like, yeah, I made like a super like horrible misplay. It was awful. Like I think you mentioned there, he was like, yeah, like I was talking to my partner and I felt really bad, and like but I think he's the type of person that he surprises me at times. Like actually, in the moment after he loses, it really depends on the stakes, right? But most of the time he handles it quite well, and then maybe later on he'll really kind of evaluate it. So it's like people deal with things a little bit differently. But ultimately, like mastering losing the game, and as you said, Zach, like falling down and getting back up and like failing, that's a true skill and a true mentality task to tackle. So yeah, props. Like I think all the pro players in this game, all the high level players, you guys are just like, you're so inspirational for so many players. Like inspirational for me as well. Like I said, as somebody that's like not nearly at the level of you guys, I learned so much from watching you guys play, from listening to you guys talk. So yeah, just thanks for doing what you guys do. You guys are cracked. You guys are crazy. But I think that covers it. We could talk about this for another few hours, of course. But I want to say thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the podcast. I do want to note that next week our episode should be going out around Monday night, Tuesday morning, because Thiago is going to be traveling to DLC Singapore, so I want to make sure Thiago's on the episode, and I'm also moving back to Ireland for my new job, so that's going to be a little bit crazy, but excited to share that news with you guys as well. So if you guys enjoyed watching the episode, the one thing you can do is leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your local podcast platform. There's a video version available over on youtube.com/@PodcanaPodcast. Hit the subscribe button there. Twitters are @Kawatech_CG, @ZachBivens1, and @ThiagoXS23. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.